Hey, welcome to the stream, you guys. This is just a random pop-up stream. So I'm just getting started after work tonight. Um, haven't even really taken a look at what we need to do. I do know that NX21 is out. I don't know if I want to get into an NX21 upgrade stream tonight. Um, so we'll look at NX21 on Sunday. Um, and we'll probably upgrade like the Sudoku game then. Um, let's see what we've got in our code here. Let's see, NCU format group. Let's just see what we've got to upgrade. So yeah, NX Angular is a point release, so I'm okay with that. NX is going to version 21. So we'll hold off on that until Sunday. So we'll avoid any upgrades. Probably a good idea anyway, just the day before the stream, right? Not the stream before the workshop, right? But if we serve our workshop here, let's get this up and going. Oh, looks like I need to upgrade my browser. That's fine. We get WebStorm going also. So on Sunday, basically Junie wrote the application for us, and we wrote a couple of tests just to show, that we could create an application that looks like it's properly tested, but actually isn't good for like real testing. And so, what do we mean by real testing, right? And by real testing, we mean testing that we can trust. Testing that's robust. If we look at like what we did with Excalibur, and I'm going to be recreating this basically tomorrow, right? But there are two kinds of flashlights that people commonly have, right? The really expensive, like most people carry around in their pocket their phone, right? So like an iPhone is an incredibly expensive flashlight. It's also incredibly difficult to test and change and do anything like that, right? But like an actual flashlight with batteries and a light bulb and a switch and all that. And we'll be going over this again tomorrow during the workshop. We'll be drawing this stuff out. Um, so we'll be drawing this again. But this is kind of like, what do we mean by really testable stuff? But we can test a battery and figure out, does a battery have charge? And if it doesn't have charge, then we can replace it, right? We can test the light bulb and see, is the light bulb the problem, or is the switch the problem, or what parts of the flashlight are broken. And then it's incredibly cheap to create a flashlight, but it's also really really cheap to replace the parts. The same can't be said about like an iPhone. If we're using an iPhone as a flashlight, it's extremely expensive. If anything goes wrong with that phone, then replacing it becomes expensive. And so that's the idea. This is the application that Junie built for us. So we're going to duplicate this application, and then we're going to change it so that we can compare, the application with, with the code that Junie wrote. And the code that Junie wrote is typical, just enterprise level code. So we're gonna copy this over. We're going to we're gonna write some tests on the tested code, right? We're gonna make it testable, and we're gonna implement some stuff about it that makes testing it easier. So that's the goal for tonight. And then tomorrow during the workshop, we'll be going over, the stuff that we built tonight, and we'll be talking about it. Um, so that's kind of the goal. You guys will get the extended version tonight, because the workshop's only an hour long. So the version we do tonight will be kind of the extended version and why we're making those decisions. Um, so anyway, we can stop serving the application. We can see that we can test it. I don't want to run it with a watch. Um, I really want to get to NX21 because running things with watch and things like that, long running tasks, they completely redid the output from NX. And so I really want to investigate that and see how that stuff works. Really excited about that. But again, I don't want to get too distracted from the goal of getting our workshop done tomorrow, right? And we can see that, hey, it ran our tests. Our tests all ran properly in 23 seconds. So I don't know. I would have liked better output from this. I'll be honest. Like if we run it with watch, we usually get better output. But we have to make changes for that output to happen. So right, so all of our tests pass. Maybe we can run it with a verbose. Does that give us what we want? There we go. Verbose is what we want. So we can see that it ran the service and the component tests, and 12 total pet tests passed, but our test coverage isn't great. And because of the way the code is written, our test is actually, it's going to be difficult to test. We've got logic mixed into the template. So if we look, like here, the button click is actually putting logic into the template. And we've got logic mixed into our component also, right? So we're getting the characters and we're setting these arrays equal to the characters. Like this is horrible code, but we're doing this on purpose so that we can write code that's better. And what I don't want to do is, I don't want to compare like observables to like signals and things like that. But like if you look at like the get top characters here, changing this is going to be tough for us to test, right? To make sure that we only get a certain number of characters. And so it becomes more and more difficult, right? Like this in and of itself is a difficult piece to test, because we've hard coded it. And that's a bad idea, right? Like our software here is brittle. So let's go about fixing that. The way we're going to do that is we're going to create a new application. So let's go over here to NX. We're going to generate. Actually, let's not do it that way. Let's pop open our project. No, we'll do it. We'll do it that way because we're going to add a new application. So we'll go back over to NX. We're going to generate an application. So we're going to create an Angular application. And the application we want to create, how do I have to hit generate here? required property directory is missing. So it's going to be here, but the application, I just want to call this, let's call this testable code, right? Can I generate that? Required property directory is missing. Okay, let's go over here. Let's go and generate a new, where's my NX? NX generate application. Creates an Angular application. But we've got like no options here, and that's not what we want. I'm curious why that's the case. That's fine. We can just do it here, right? npx nx generate. And we can do at nx/application. Actually, that's not what we want. At nx/angular. And we're gonna throw dry run on this. Just because whenever I do something aimed at nx/angular. Okay. It's been a long time since I've had to add actual applications. So let's go to the docs. And let's search for Angular. And our generators here is the application. Oh, I need the colon application. That's nx angular colon application. And that should give us like the stuff that we need. Which directory do we want to create the application in? npx nxg. Thank you for that, ngserve io. Yeah, I was forgetting the application piece. So the directory, we're going to do testable code. We're going to use esbuild again. We tried rspack. I need to experiment with it more. We don't want SSR or SSG pre-rendering. And there we go. We did forget to add. Oh. So we need to npx nx. If we want to add Tailwind, right? And I forgot to add the, so I forgot the -- add Tailwind. That's okay. We can we can just run this one here. So we'll add this to our code. npx. Oh, it's already got the npx on it. Sweet. So we called our new application. Oh, never mind. We don't have to do this. I didn't create anything because I had the dry run flag on here, right? And so we can do add tailwind. And we'll see that it's going to add the tailwind stuff to it also. So testable code, yes build, none of that. So there we go. Now we've got our testable code, and it's adding our tailwind config. So we'll be able to use tailwind with it. So let's go ahead and remove the dry run flag and move forward from there. Which directory do you want to create the application in? It's going to be our testable dash code. Oh, you're saying I should put it in apps. Do I have apps already set up here? If we take a look at our project structure, it does have it under apps. It should, I think it will put it in there, right? Let's put it in apps testable code. Do I? We'll experiment. We'll experiment. Yes, build. No SSR. And so now if we list this out, yeah, it didn't put it in apps. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there that the directory flag, that's okay. We can move this stuff, right? So we can move it into there. We probably need to go into our nx.json. And well, we can see, right? Like if we do an npx nx serve testable code, yeah, so there is something going on with nx. So is my nx.json. Let's go take a look at testable code here. And in my project.json, source root is testable code source. If we take a look at this one and we look at our project.json, our source root is apps. So I did make a mistake just moving it, but we can fix this up. So we can just add apps here. And the schema needs to go back to, I believe, right? If we take a look here, goes back to application app. Let's close and hide that. Nope, that's not what we want. Let's just hide that. So it needs to go output path. Options.output path. So this will be in dist/apps. Index, man. Apps. We're gonna have to add apps to the beginning of everything. So app/tsconfig app/ right? And then apps there. Boom. And then styles also includes apps. I'm just looking for anywhere that we need to add any kind of apps to it. It looks like that fixes it. So let's see now if we can do our NX serve, right? npx NX serve testable -code. Boom. Let's see if that works. Unconventional stream day. Nice. Yeah, I'm going to have to add apps to the beginning of everything. CEO of Buffalo Wild Wings. Exactly. Failed to process project graph. Well, this is the easy one to fix. We don't need the end-to-end code. I'm not going to worry about end-to-end testing. So the easy fix is we're just going to get rid of that. So again, we'll do that. And inside of our apps, we'll just get rid of both of these. Goodbye. So now our end-to-end testing is gone. So that should solve that problem. npx NX reset. Do I need to run an NX reset? No, not workspace. NX reset. Oh, you're probably right. There we go. Thanks for that, ngServe. If you ever need to mass rename selectors, WebStorm's refactoring of selectors is slick. I tried it and it could tell my library selector with the same name as duplicated. That's very cool. Oh, I've got a ESLint config.mjs. Man, me moving that. I should have used the NX move. This should be fairly simple here. Yeah, that should work. There we go. What? What have I done? You know what? Let's do this all over again. Instead of trying to dig ourselves out of a hole, let's go here. Let's delete that. What do I have open? I've got that open. I've got that open. Let's delete that now. Oops. I'm gonna have to shut this down. There we go. Instead, let's try again, right? Add Tailwind. Let's add the directory of apps. And let's see. Let's add the dry run flag. Let's also, to help, there's like a skip directory of the new application, routing standalone. So there's add Tailwind, backend project. I don't want to skip tests. Style. Let's see if we run this one with the dry run, what we get. Is it going to ask for the name? No. What is it saying? Oh, I don't want test app here. This should be testable code. So we do want ES build. None of that. Yeah, that would be a mess. It's a good thing we didn't do that. So apps/testable code. So the name does nothing for us. So there we go. So now we've got testable code. And it's generating E to E, but it doesn't matter. So we'll take the dry run flag off. And now we should be able to serve that. We'll do it live. Yeah. So the reset works. That's true. The graph changed. That's a good call out there. So now npx nx serve testable code should be able to serve our code. And then the last thing we need to do is just copy over the Daisy UI stuff. Yeah, you see that? So there we go. So now if we go here and we go to our application here and we refresh, we're going to get the NX landing page, which is fine. So we're going to say yes to this. We're going to terminate that. And now we're going to start again. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this one and this one. We're going to go into our apps and we're going to go into our testable code. And then we're going to go into our testing structure. And most of this stuff can stay the same, but our source, we can actually just override our styles.scss. That should give us Daisy. So if we serve, we serve this again, we should get it with a Daisy UI theme. Yeah, so we see Daisy here. So that adds our Daisy to it. And now if we refresh, not a lot has changed, but we did get the dark background. So it is picking up that, hey, we should do a dark background. So very cool there. So we got our Daisy. The next thing that we can do to just get to a good starting point is let's go into our app itself. Well, that's hideous. We'll just take all of this and we'll delete it and we'll put all of this in place. And now if we serve it again, we should see that we get the exact same thing, right? Because we've just got the exact same source code. So if we refresh this, there we go. So now we've got the same application. We've got some terrible tests, but we're at a starting point where we can go forward. So let's talk about a couple of things that we can do to our source code to encourage better testing patterns. And it looks like I killed WebStorm, so we'll bring WebStorm back up. And we'll go ahead and close both of these. And let's go into our testable code. Actually, here, we'll just delete this, right? Keep our eyes focused on what we want to focus on. And in our source, in our app, we'll go in and take a look at our app component. Wait, why do I have an app component.html? Where did those come from? Oh, it just hadn't updated. Okay. So we'll take a look at our app component first, right? Saying we've got duplicate code. Why is it saying we've got duplicate code? Oh, well, yeah, this is duplicate code. It's exactly duplicated from another place in the project. So it is recognizing that. So one of the first things we can do is we can take anything that doesn't need to be public. So like this title right here, right? This title is used. Is it used anywhere? I don't think it is. Let's take a look at this. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I don't think this title is used anywhere. We can actually take a look, right? Title. yeah, we're not using this anywhere, so um, we can make this protected and read only, right? Is that being used? Testable dash code. Yeah, I don't think that's being used anywhere. Um, but one of the big things that we can do is anything that is being used, we can make it protected. Um, it doesn't need to be public, and the reason for this is how many times have you guys seen, um, like if we go take a look at, um, you know, yeah, like here. Um, so how many times have you seen somebody do something like app dot all characters equals um, this, right? Um, and this isn't going to work because it's not a TMNT character, right? It's not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle character. But how many times in unit tests have you seen somebody do something like that? Um, or how many times have you done it yourself? And that's not the way that somebody is going to interact with your component, right? So by leaving these exposed in public, what you're doing is you're encouraging people to interact with your component in a way that it wouldn't it wouldn't be used by a normal user, right? Like a normal user isn't going to drop to the console, grab the Angular component, and change these. Um, so if we want our component to behave better, we could do the same, right? But we don't want read only on these yet, right? So right away, um, we're we're limiting the testing space that somebody can interact with our component in a way that we don't want them to interact with our component, right? We can do the same with our load characters, right? But we could do even better. Instead of making it protected, why not just make it private? And by making it truly private, we've now made it so that we're encapsulating our service better, right? Our code better. Um, we can't make show details private because it's used in the template. So instead, what we can do is we can make show details um, protected, and now show details still works. The problem that we've still got um, is our code is still all jumbled together, right? We're still very much like we're still very much like the iPhone, and not like the and not like the flashlight, right? Where we've got discrete independent parts that we can test. Um, so that's the next step, right? Is we need to take this big jumbled, smashed everything together, and we need to make it easier to test. Um, so how do we do that, right? Well, the first thing we can do is we can extract a service that will provide state for our application. So all of this component state right here is, it's dangerous because we're doing dangerous things here, right? And they're dangerous for a lot of reasons. Like this is bad for a whole bunch of just RxJS reasons, right? We aren't handling like early cancellations and stuff. Like we're just subscribing, right? And that subscription is going to stick around for as long as that is there, and it's not good. Instead, we can look at kind of the state that's all scrambled into our component as the batteries of our flashlight. It would be nice if we could potentially abstract state away. It also leads to better testing patterns, right? So let's abstract our state away. Like our all characters, our top characters, and even our selected character can all be moved into a store of some sort. We're going to add NGRX signal. So, if we go to ngrx.io, probably already have this open, right? I've got a whole bunch of stuff open that I never remember what I've got open. But within our ngrx.io, we can take a look at our state and our signals, right? So I believe we can just add this through NX. I believe NX now allows us to do NX add at ngrx/signals. We're going to add a signal store. Did I see the events PR? I haven't had a chance to look at the events PR. I am a bit brain dead. I started a new job, and I'm not. You guys probably know where I work. You'll probably, as soon as I update my LinkedIn, you guys will know where I work. I've been advised that don't talk about my job. So I started a new job. I'm doing onboarding, and I am just brain dead from onboarding today. I've been very, very focused on that, so I haven't seen the events PR. I need to take a look at the NGRX signals events PR because there's been so many amazing things that Rainer has been sharing and that you've been sharing with me, Michael. I've got like a backlog of stuff that I need to be looking at, right? But I haven't taken a look at it yet. So we added the NGRX signals to our store or to our application. So now we've got our services here. I want to leave services for communication services. So let's add a new directory, and we'll just call this our store, right? And we're gonna create. We'll just create a new file. And this new file, we'll call this. Well, do we want to do it as a service? No. No, we don't. We'll just create a new file. This is the new TypeScript file, and this will be our app component store. So there we go. So now we've got our app component store. We need to move stuff from our app component to this store, right? So we need to create a new signal store. And I probably should have used generators here, to be honest. I believe that there's some generators that we could add. Developer tools, schematics, right? No, these are for the NGRX. I believe there's some schematics for NGRX signals, but we can just create our own signal store because it's really, really simple, right? We just return a signal store and we just add some state to it, right? So that's really what we're going to do. We're going to take like the all characters, top characters, and the selected character. We're going to move this all into the store, and that's also going to allow us to move this service, right? And so that's going to be way better for us. Um, Rainer added me to the NG News ideas doc. So some stuff you see maybe agenda focus from me. That's awesome. Love it, Michael. I sent you a LinkedIn PM of a gist I use to start up stores. It has links to docs for each with XYZ. Really? Let me take a look. I heard that come through. Let me take a look on the LinkedIn stuff. So let's grab this. Thank you for sharing, by the way, Michael. So this is awesome. So this is what you use to just start your stuff up. That's very cool. So we need a couple of things for ours, and you know what? We're gonna use Michael's. We're gonna use Michael's thing, right? So can I copy this? No, that is not what I wanted. Let's just take a look at the raw here, and we'll copy the raw. We'll just work off of. We'll work off of your stuff. So our store state is perfectly fine. I'm good with this. We don't care about loading here. The state that we're going to move across is the all characters, top characters, and selected characters. So we've got all characters. And this is going to be a TMNT character. Boom. We need to import that. We also want top characters. And that will also be the TMNT character there. And then the selected character is a TMNT character ordinal, right? So we've basically moved all of this across. So now we need to create our state. The one thing that I typically do, it's probably a little bit different than a lot of others, is I like to make this factory. And the reason I like to make it a factory is it allows me to potentially use the initial state in, like, maybe I want to reset stuff and I want to pass in values with the reset state or things. So, you know, I could pass in, settings here, and this can be a partial, store state. And that allows me to do some stuff with my factory. The factory also makes it so that I'm unlikely to, we can move this back now so it's easy to see. The other thing that the factory does for us is it makes it unlikely that I will automatically, or not automatically, that I will accidentally mutate the state, right? Um, and I mean, there's other reasons for it. Like the other thing that I can do for testing is I can export this const with the initial state. Um, well, I don't know. That's not so much a thing, but it allows me to do some stuff with state, um, where I could, if I exported it, I can use it in unit tests and things like that, right? So to start off with, all characters is just going to be an empty array. Top characters is going to be an empty array, and selected character will be null, right? And so there we go. I'm going to leave your primer in. Um, and I want to give you some props for this. So from Michael Small, and let's give a link to this. I just want to give props where props are due, because this is awesome. And we'll make sure to call this out also just in the workshop. Oh, it looks like you've already got it here too, but we may remove this block, and I just want this to be there for posterity, right? So now our store, this is fine. I actually don't want to call it this. Let's call this our app store. So it will be a signal store, but with state, initial state. And for right now, we're just going to provide it right as an empty factory. In the future, you know, if we decide to reset or something like that, we may want to again, you know, use that function for whatever. For right now, we aren't going to do any props. We aren't going to do computed. We aren't going to do with. I'm not going to clean this up. Not going to clean this up. The one thing. Oh, we don't need the on destroy hook, but we can have the on init hook. And the on init hook is where we're going to add in our service, right? So right away, we can get rid of a lot of this stuff. So boom, this can all go away, and instead, now we can provide our store. Protected app store equals, and we're going to inject our app store. But we've got a problem here that we aren't providing the store, but we can do that, right? Oh, come on. There we go. So now we've got our app store, but we need to provide it. And I usually put my providers below the template. This template is massive. Providers, and here we are now going to provide the app store, right? And that is going to clean up a whole bunch of what we're doing here, right? For characters of store.top characters. Oh, did I call it app store? What did I call it when I injected it? Yeah, I called it app store. Top characters, but now, you know, now we're using a signal store, so we need to use signals, right? And here again, app store, all characters. And I think the error that it's giving us is that, yeah, Oh, it's not telling us that it's not telling us that we should call the signal. Um, so if we have a selected character, then we can go with app or dot selected character dot name, right? And this is our app store. Selected character dot color. And you know what? Let's be smart about this. What's going on here? Oh, um, it's not narrowing this type. So we've already got an issue. See, it's already caught something for us. But let's finish this out, right? I always forget. I remember what the select next is. I always forget what the unselect. Right. Where is my duplicates? Convert case, string manipulation. Is it? I wonder. Is it just the shift? No, that's not it. Because I want to. I'm using Control D. It auto suggests. Yeah, it did. It did. That was awesome. Where is that? Where's my Control D? Tools. Code. Analyze code. Navigate. I thought it was. I thought it was under edits. There it is. Oh, it's Control U. Control U. I always forget that one. So Control U. There we go. So now we've got the occurrences that we want. So now we can just do app store dot selected character. Boom. But we've got a problem here. In that our selected character can be null. And so that's causing a whole bunch of problems. And so right away we've got, well, this one doesn't even make sense, so that we can't fix that one at this point. But right away we're encountering something that doesn't make sense in our code. And so we can go back to our app store, and inside of here, instead of allowing it to be null, what we can do is we can go to our TMNT character, And I usually do this here. And I wouldn't make this an interface. I'd actually make this a type. And that equals that. But we can export type. And here we can just do our export const empty tmnt character, right? And we're going to make it a factory again because we may want to eventually do some stuff with it, right? So there we go. So we need to return an empty character. We need to make a decision. I'm going to say -1. So any ID under 0 will be wrong. We can do name, right? Color, weapon, skills, high score, image URL. We don't need, and we don't need description. So this is our empty TMNT character. And now we can go back to our store. And instead of this, we can now just say, hey, this is an empty TMNT character. So there we go. So now our app component should be fixed for all of this stuff, right? And could you just app? You could do that. We could say you're absolutely true. We could just let character equals that, right? And then we could just say if character, right? And then down here we can say we would just do character.name, right? And this would be totally fine. And if we went back to the null, that would be fine too. The issue. So this if character doesn't make sense with the. You know what? We're gonna go your route. Because there's a lot more changes that need to happen here, and I don't want to get into that too much. So let's go back here, and we will make this that or null. We'll go back to a null character here, and your question made me think for a bit, and we'll take this out too. The reason that in the long run, not allowing null is probably a good idea. In the short term, we want to stay as close to the original as possible. So that's no longer a signal. And so like getting this to show or not to show would require some more changes, right? I'm fighting myself. I'm fighting myself here, Michael. How do I feel about that? Because really, I should go with my gut because we want to talk about writing. We want to talk about writing better code, right? So this should not be null. This should be an empty tmnt character, right? We'll import that. And what we can do is we can add a computed here, right? And our computed can be, our computed here is character selected, right? And this will just return, so character selected is going to be a computed, and it will return, come on. So here we want to return, and here we just want to say that the store.id is greater than 0, right? And we need that. So the reason that we want to do this is we want our application to be easier to maintain, right? So this is fine. Like, we don't want to be just displaying an empty character. And as it stands, if we go serve this, oh, it's not going to serve. But as it stands, our character is always going to be defined, so this doesn't make any sense, right? However, if we change it to be app store character selected, now it will only show up if the character is selected, right? And so that's going to solve our issue for us there. But we should try to avoid, we should always try to avoid, okay, let me rephrase this. I always try to avoid using null or undefined. I prefer instead to use computed values. Like, there are cases where null or undefined has to be used, but I tend to find that those are few and far between. And usually it's when you're interacting with something that already defines null or undefined, right? So this is good. We've got this all set up, but we're still broken because now, resetting our character, which was difficult to test before, we're going to be able to make it easier to test, right? And then, like, our all characters and stuff, this stuff is just all broken because our TMNT service, we're going to pull this out. And I can't believe I wrote code this way. I don't usually write code this way. But let's pull this out, and we're going to move this into our store. So here, we're going to const tmnt service equals inject that. So there we go. And then in our on init, we're just going to call this code here. Right. So this goes back to one of the things that we can realize, and actually we don't even need to do that. Here we can just paste in our load characters. right? Our load characters is that. And we can change this up just a little bit, right? So we want to use an RxJS method here to handle the load characters, and then we'll use another RxJS method for the top characters, right? And that's how we'll do it. So here, instead of doing it this way, we can just do, load all characters, or yeah, we can call it load all characters. And we can make this private also. And this is an Rx method. And inside of here, we can just call pipe. We can pull in pipe from RxJS. And so now we can pipe and then we can tap, right? So we can tap actually, we want to make sure that our Rx method is passing in a TMNT character array, right? And then we can tap response here. Oh, tap response is part of another part of the NGRX stuff. So for now, we can just tap and we can have our response. And inside of our response, we can just store dot all characters dot wait, store dot all characters. Oh, it's not a writable signal. It's because I have to patch state. I am so out of practice with this. Patch state, right? And inside of here, we just pass in store and boom. Right, so this becomes our load all characters. And so down here, we can just say store dot load all characters. And here we can pass in the TMNT service dot get characters. And now we're properly handling our service in a reactive and responsive way. A one-man nerd fight, exactly. That is a great explanation for me. So now we're properly handling our RxJS stuff, right? We're properly subscribing, we're properly unsubscribing, we're handling all of that stuff. But we get a nice transition into the array that we need for the component. And this is the benefit of a store also, right? But this is going to be more about testing, right? So load top characters. Boom, that is exactly what we want. So now we can get rid of this code. And in our on init, we can also say, hey, store.load top characters and get top characters, and we were grabbing the top 3, right? So there's some good stuff going on here. And now our state is much easier to deal with. Um, we no longer need this ng on init because we've got the hook for the store. So the store is doing it for us. So we can get rid of this. We can get rid of all of this, right? And that allows us to do a lot of this stuff. The last thing we need to do is just deselect a character, right? So let's add the ability to deselect a character. So we can go back to our store, and our methods here, we can just add another method. And this method, we can call it deselect character. And it can be a void method. And all we need to do is just patch state the store, the selected character with an empty character. And now we can come back here, and our click can just be to deselect the character, right? So we can now have app store dot not reset, deselect. Come on, deselect character. There we go. Right. So now we've cleaned up our template by using the store. The last thing we need to do is just fix up the show details. And we just, all we need to do is add to our store, select character. So select character. And here we patch the state with that. There we go. And so now in our app component, instead of this, now we can just say, hey, this dot app store dot select character, right? And already our store has become infinitely more testable. Oh man, that is way better to pass the HTTP client call than in every RX method have to switch map every time. Why haven't I done that, at least for static calls? And I mean, that's just things that you pick up over time, right? So, you know, using the component store and then moving to signal store, component store used RX method all the time. Signal store, I just brought that along for the ride. And it's so much easier to do this kind of stuff. And the nice thing is that Signal Store, these aren't available outside of the store. Like I could try to call them, but they aren't available, right? The Signal Store will tell me, yeah, you can't use those, right? They're only for internal use. It'll throw an error if I try to use them, which gives me better encapsulation, which allows me to do better testing. But yeah, making the HTTP call and then switch mapping and doing all of that stuff can take a bunch of time. And this stuff becomes way more powerful when you start using resources too, right? Because you could take like your resource promises, or you could take your you could turn it into a who knows what, right? But your resources become really, really powerful when you use this method also. So I'm a big fan of just using RX method or signal method, and just allowing the store to worry about, do I need to unsubscribe? Am I multicasting this, right? I don't have to worry about all of that stuff. I don't have to add share. I don't have to do any of that stuff because the RX method or the signal, the signal method, they know how to handle what I'm giving it. I just need to worry about, hey, is my signal store behaving the way I want it to? And the nice thing about this is I'm doing a time check here because I'm really debating just showing people doing this in real time. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll just clean this up in real time. I don't know. I think that's a good way to go, and then we can just commit that later. Um, so I can set this back to the way it was, and then move forward from there. But I can have my store in place already, and just show how we're moving across to that, and show the benefits here, right? Because we can show level by level why what we're doing is better, right? And I think that's an important thing to show. But right off the bat, one of the huge things that we're getting is look at the look at we've got no public exposure here. There's no reason for us to write a unit test for this app component anymore. So right away, we're getting better component hygiene, right? So these tests don't make sense. Unit tests do not make sense on this component anymore because there's no way for me to interact with this component outside of actually clicking the buttons, right? So we've got a huge win right off the bat. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal for falling into the pit of success of testability. When testing components, you should be testing them the way that your users are going to interact with them. So by completely removing all the public space, like if I were to write a unit test for this, what would it do? It would be the stupid unit test that you see everywhere that it renders, right? That would be the unit test. Yeah, and becoming side effect free, exactly. There's so much here that we did in such a little amount of time. But beyond that, this is infinitely more testable, right? Because I can mock the service and tell the service what to give, and I can test that the service comes back, right? I can go in and I can select a character, and I can verify that my state has changed, right? So let's do that, right? Let's show just, and this becomes kind of like the batteries to if we go back to our analogy from the beginning, our store becomes like the batteries. It's what the flashlight reacts to, right? The power from the batteries, the power, the state from the store is what our application is reacting to. We can test these, right? And verify that they work. And that's what we'll do now, right? Is we'll write some simple unit tests that verifies that this works. So we go over here, and with our store, we just add a new TS file, right? And this is just going to be our app.component.store.spec.ts. And now we can test these, right? We can add our describe block, right? And this is our app store. Boom. So now we've got tests for our app store, right? And one of the first things we can do is in the old store, or in the old component where everything was just smashed together, right? It's very, very difficult. It would have been very, very difficult for us to test the store itself, right? Or the state. So think about all the times when you've written tests to let's go look at the app component here, right? If we go back to our testing structure here, and we just look at this app component, We just think about what would it take to test load characters, right? Well, first of all, it's public, so we would just call load characters, right? And we would get the service, um, and then because characters are public, we would test those, right? But that's not the way the user would work with it. And interestingly enough, right, my unit tests would still pass if I did this, right? Because I'm calling a public method and I'm testing a public property. They would just pass. It would be fine, right? It doesn't care. Um, with the store that we've written, and that's no longer possible, right? Um, and so it becomes much more um, it becomes much more powerful, right? Um, and this is the thing, like AI doesn't understand that this is bad, right? Um, and it doesn't understand that this is bad, right? We can't call these. So let's go ahead and let's just bring in the AI stuff. Um, and let's bring in the App Store. Come on. Um, it's right there. Why can't it find it? Import App Store from there. Boom. Why does it not like this? Oh, yeah. You are absolutely right. Um, so here, um, oh, it's been a while since I've done this. Um, I need to go look at the docs. Um, I want the type of the store. And I always forget. I know that there's a helper class that we can use for it. But I'm drawing a blank right now. It's been a while since I've had to do it. Um, so actually, we should probably go about it this way, right? So here we go. Movie store. Wait. I don't even have to do all of that stuff there, huh? Well, that's much better. Um, so we don't need this. We could just instead say here that const app store equals test bed dot inject app store. Boom. Um, we could do the same here and the same here. Um, the same here and the same here. The same here. And now we just need to import the empty TMNT character. Going to be honest, we made a mature product from the ground up using the component store, but until starting with Signal Store in the later stages, we didn't realize Signal Store effects could be used like RX method. I mean, that's why I love the community, and I love people like you, Michael, who are constantly sharing ideas with me. Because, like, it is impossible for me to come up with every way that things could be used, right? Um, it just it doesn't it wouldn't be possible for me to do that. I love that here it's already saying, hey, load all characters doesn't exist on type app store because it's internal, right? So these initial values don't make any sense here, but it should load all the characters. We want to inject the app store, but we also need a way to provide the so before each we want to set up the test bed, right? So we can just say test bed, configure testing module here, and now we can say, hey, we want to provide providers, and here we want to provide the so we want to provide not App Store, we want to provide the TMNT service, right? TMNT service, right? So we're going to provide that. But we want to use, right? Use value. Well, we can just say use. We can use value, right? And what I like to do is I just like to provide some observables that I can use, right? So here, load all characters is going to use load all characters uses the get all characters, right? So we can instead say, hey, get all characters, right? And let's do this the right way. Const get all characters equals new subject, right? And TMNT characters, right? And so now we can say, hey, and we need to import these. So there we go. So now our use value get all characters is going to return, and we should put the $sign on this just to follow convention, right? So now we can say, hey, get all characters is just going to be an thing that returns get all characters, right? Boom. And so the nice thing about this is here, instead of calling load all characters, we can instead say, hey, we want this, right? And our characters are bad because these should be a TMNT character array. And so now it's going to tell us, hey, we need a couple of things. We need a color and that, right? And we need that. And so by turning that into an observable, now we get control over when we emit. What doesn't it like here? Skills is missing. So skills is that and that. Michelangelo is a party dude. Right? And so now we can expect this to equal this. And so now we've got control over what we get back, right? And we can do the same thing down below. But again, we're able to isolate and test exactly what we want. Right? So here, we need to make some changes. So boom. But now we need a top characters observable, right? So there we go. And then inside of here, we can add get top characters. And we can return that. So down here, we can say, hey, get top characters dot next of characters. We expect it to equal characters, right? And so now we're able to test things at a much lower level. One thing that I would do, and notice that it's picking up that, hey, these are pretty much the same thing, because now they are pretty much the same test. But we're able to isolate, hey, we're getting the top characters, hey, we're getting all characters and stuff like that, right? So here, now we want to test that we can select a character. So let's go ahead and we'll grab Michelangelo here. And we will make Michelangelo our character here. And again, using some typing here is going to help us make sure that we're getting the right stuff. So now we've selected the character. And the last thing we want to do here is just make sure that we get this character there. So we want to select that character, deselect it, and then we just want to make sure that it's an empty character. And so now we've got good tests in place. So let's go see if our tests, do what we expect them to do. So npx nx run many, and we're going to run our tests for both, right? Yeah, it's always, I think it's always in our best interest to isolate and make things easier. And notice that now our oh, we're failing. Why are we failing? No provider for signal store. Oh, yep, you're right. You're absolutely right. I messed up when I set this up. We do need the app store in here. Otherwise, how does it know what to provide? So let's try this again. And we aren't going to do run many. We're going to nx test, and we're going to do testable code, right? Hey, welcome to the stream. Glad you're here. We're getting closer to the end, but we've got some stuff ahead. So now notice that, hey, our store passes, right? So our service passes, but our store also passes. And our store is infinitely more testable, right? When we look at when we look at everything smashed together, this isn't everything smashed together. This is everything smashed together. So all of this state being smashed into our component just made it so much more like, imagine testing load characters, right? And we've done it, right? And we've talked about this over and over again. But testing this, you're probably gonna instantiate your component. You're probably gonna call load characters, right? But we've proven that that's ineffectual testing because it doesn't actually test that your component works the way that you want it to. By moving to something like this, where we've made it impossible for you to interact with these public methods anymore, right? Like, we've encapsulated everything. We're forcing you to think differently about testing. So testing this component is now a much deeper thing, right? Now to test that the component works, you have to actually click the buttons. But we can now abstract our store, right? So we don't have to worry about we don't have to worry about abstracting the HTTP calls. We don't have to worry about anything like that. We can abstract the store, and we can provide an abstract store, and the documentation on testing with Signal Store is so good, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of ways that we can provide our own stores. There's all this documentation on how to do it. So we can provide a store and then test that, hey, when I click this button, does the store behave the way I expect it to, right? And so now we're forcing the user to interact, or the tester to interact with the component in the same way that the user would. And if things don't behave, then we know it's broken, and it makes our components a lot less brittle when we test them. But it also encourages us to follow good testing patterns, right? We use component tests for components, and then we use unit tests for stores and business logic, right? There's a whole bunch of business logic that I would contend, well, this isn't that complicated. But there is stuff in here that I would contend we could even move into potentially a library, or another service, or things like that we can test. And we're getting multiple levels of abstraction here, right? Because here we're abstracting the service in our tests, right? So we abstracted away the actual TMNT service, right? We don't care if it's getting its data from an HTTP backend. We don't care if it's something we made up. We really don't care. We've got control over a subject, and because now we've got control over a subject, we can control when that subject emits, which gives us the ability to control loading spinners. It gives us the ability to do all sorts of powerful things, right? And it's by abstracting the state away from the component, right? It goes back to what we're, this drawing, right? Sure, the iPhone is a really expensive flashlight, right? But we can't really test the iPhone very well. If something's broken, what do we do? Well, we have to go find a genius in a bar and hope that the genius in the bar can figure it out. If they can't, we're replacing our iPhone, right? If our software is instead designed more like a flashlight, right? we can test each individual battery. We can test the light bulb. We can test the switching mechanism. And it's by far the cheaper way to write software, but it's also the more long-term viable and more maintainable way. But it also encourages us to write software. When we think about testing first, it encourages us to write software from a different perspective, and our architecture changes. So that's really kind of the point of tomorrow. I'm debating whether I really even want to get into like pulling out. There's some other stuff in here that I'm not a huge fan of, but like for example, this for loop here. Is the same as this for loop here. Oh, no, it's not. It's the same as this for loop almost. Well, no, it's not. It's the same as this card body for the most part, right? But there's some differences, and I'm trying to decide. I've got an hour, and in the beginning, I'm expecting to be asked a couple of Star Wars questions. I'm looking forward to just talking with the people on the panel. Some of my, there's some of the people that I worked with quite a bit when I helped organize the meetup. So I enjoy getting to talk to them. I don't know how much I want to muddy the waters. I think this is a very, very powerful demonstration of writing code. There's more here, but it's, abstracting components out and things like that again goes to the discussion, and maybe we can include that as a bonus if I need to fill for time. But I'm thinking, I don't know, what do you guys think? Like, if we went through this exercise, but with me arguing with myself a lot less, we can probably fit that into 40 minutes. Would you be happy with that, or should we do more? Like, because I'm always we should do more, but at some point we have to cut it and be like, yeah, this is what we've got. So making separate, yeah, would be understandable. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Maybe with extracting something to their own component, you get to test some behavior on a different file, and that's a good point too. Johanderson. Yeah, is it Johanderson? Is that? I feel like I probably know you. And that's the fun thing about like Twitch names, right? Um, you're gonna have to message me, either through Twitter or something, and let me know who you are, because like Twitch names always mess me up. And there've been people that I work with every day who have come to my streams, and they let me know privately afterwards, and I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Message me, because I'm fairly certain that well, I'm not certain. If I was certain, I wouldn't be saying this, but I have a good idea. But yeah, I'd like to say hi. So I'm more of a Reddit kind of guy, but I'm trying to be more active on community streams. Hey, I love that. I need to be more active on Reddit. I used to be way more active on Reddit, but it got a little frustrating because there were two Angular, right? There was the Angular and there was the Angular 2 Reddit. But Michael just told me that, now there's one official Reddit, and so it's good for me to come back and sicko, I hired to try and blow up your DMs. Awesome, Michael. I love it. I think I've got to go pick up my daughter at dance here in a little bit. Um, I think I feel good about where we are. Um, and I think the primary like this discussion I think is going to be an important part of it, and I feel like that's going to take a few minutes just to explain in and of itself. And I want to redraw it. I'm actually kind of nervous to redraw it because I think I did a fairly good job on Sunday's stream of not making the flashlight look phallic, right? um, kind of like cat. Oh, dude. Oh, I just heard that the what is it? The tales. Is it the tales from the Sith? Um, explores Cad Bane and Ventress. That's what I heard. Um, our angulars of so man, you like Cad Bane. I feel like they did Cad Bane dirty in the Book of Boba Fett. Um, like I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett, but I really felt like they did him dirty. Um, Tales of the Underground, that's the one. Like you, one of the things, um, being on a job hunt for a few months, there's so many things that I just had to let slide as I focused on that. Um, the job market is difficult now, and so I'm out of touch with a lot of things. I just barely caught up with Andor, and I think the latest one releases tonight. So I'm looking forward to, or no, tomorrow. I'm looking forward to watching the newest episode of Andor. Incredible show. I'm loving Andor. Um, but yeah, the Cad Bane, Tales of the Underground, um, like the Cad Bane and Ventress. I like Ventress. Ventress, just like what they did with her through the Bad Batch and kind of her story arc toward the end of Clone Wars. Um, like everybody loves Ahsoka, and I'm a huge Ahsoka fan, but Ventress had such a compelling story arc and how she got to where she was, and where she got to after that. I'm really hoping Ventress shows up in the new Ahsoka live action. Um, yeah, exactly. Star Wars is a big thing, and Brooke is a huge Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. Brooke and I are actually talking about. We've got some ideas for a Star Wars podcast, where we discuss lore, but we want to add some twists to it that I think will be very interesting to the tech community. And I don't want to give it away too much, but we've been discussing like a podcast that we want to do. Yeah, I totally agree with you. The Sisters of Dathomir, like I was really hoping we would see Ventress. When they got to the universe where the Purgils took. Oh man, I am drawing such a blank. My brain is so fried right now. It's been a day. Where they took Ezra, right? Where the Purgils took Ezra and um, Admiral Thrawn, and they ran into some more Night Sisters, right? Um, I would have loved, like, they weren't the Dathomir Night Sisters, but they were definitely Night Sisters. I would have loved to have seen some Ventress type stuff introduced there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Ventress has such a unique arc, um, and I would love to see more of her in the stuff that more people are exposed to, because she's such a good character, such an amazing character. And that's one of the things that I think Filoni did really, really well. Um, was you look at the characters that people love from the Filoni projects, right? Um, and I mean, of course, you've got Obi-Wan, and of course, you've got Anakin, and of course, you've got Maul, um, right? But look at the equally impressive. You've got Sabine Wren, you've got Ahsoka, you've got Ventress, you've got Bo-Katan, right? You've got there's just so many impressive characters um, that span all sorts of cultures, all sorts of genders, right? Like it's impressive. Um, yeah, I totally agree with you there, Johan. Johanderson. And the other thing, like, if you guys the Jedi Survivor series, um, it's the first game. It's the first game that takes place, spends a bunch of time on Dathomir. Um, it is, because that's where you meet the other Night Sister, who was the lone survivor, right? Besides Ventress. Oh, what's her name? Um, the one who, oh, who do you mean? I forget her name on Dathomir. The lore that they go into on Dathomir just expands and expounds so much more on it, that like Dathomir and the Night Sisters, and the fact that Zabrak males, right, like Maul and Oppress Savage, and oh man, yeah, you really got me going. You really sniped me there. But yeah, I think we're in a good place. Please come back to the streams, man. And I will do the same. I'll try to be more active on Reddit. Um, and I'm really looking forward to just things have made a good turn. And so I'm just looking forward to this next year of just being able to stream and not worry about. There was a lot of stuff going on, and it often made things difficult. I'm very happy to be where I am right now, and I'm looking forward to. Like I've been talking with Michael about some ideas, and Michael, I've got a new idea that you know how I was talking about the plug-in based stuff in the card game. Um, what if the card game? So the idea of the card game is that the players in the card game are demigods, and they're vying for a position in the pantheon of the gods. What if, to show their power as demigods against the other demigods who are competing, um, what if the game played like Calvin Ball? Um, and the plugins could actually be ways to mess with the rules. Um, so, um, yeah. So, what if the point of the game was to mess with other players and to make the game easier for yourself? Similar, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, but that's what I'm referring to when I say Calvin Ball. The Calvin Ball is basically this game that Calvin plays, where the rules are entirely up in the air for the entire game, right? And so, what if there was a card game where you could create cards, but the cards that you created were along the lines of a target, right? The target could be yourself or another player, so you would randomly draw targets, and then ways to change the rules for them. So one of the things I was thinking about as I was thinking about this is like, say we're playing the game and, one of the other players who I want to defeat, um, you know, I would play a rule that says, hey, this player can only score points if they have this card in their hand, right? Um, or, right, I could create a rule for myself that I score points anytime anybody else scores points, right? Um, and so it's kind of a structured form of Calvin ball, but the point is for you to make it much more difficult for your opponents to score points while you make it easier for yourself to score points. And right, it's just going to be a constantly evolving game. I feel like if you ever played this game in real life, it would lead to fist fights. But where it's got the internet, people will yell horrible things at you, but that's the worst that's going to happen. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I was thinking about the other night as I was going to bed. Um, and so I'm wanting to get started on that. I want to use 3JS to do the rendering. I think it would be cool if we could do a web game where the cards are semi 3D. So yeah, right. I love creating games. So we'll see. Like, I think a card game would be interesting, and the ability for you to add new cards to the game by putting JS files in a certain folder with the game um, opens up some crazy opportunities. Um, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, right, and that like there's a game that I really enjoy playing um, with my daughter and their friends now because they're teenagers. But the game is called Quelf, um, and Quelf has some of the weirdest stuff in it. Um, but there's just such weird rules. Like one of the rules, you've got like these secret rules and things that you have to hold on to, um, and you have to do them. So like one of the times I was playing the game, I couldn't bend my right leg for the entire game. So if I sat down, I had to sit down with my right leg out straight. If I walked around, I couldn't bend my knee and stuff like that. Yeah, 3D board a la Hearthstone. Like, I don't want to go too big from the beginning. So in the beginning, right, create the game, make sure the gameplay is fun, and then bring in something like 3JS. And if it's written properly, we should be able to replace the renderer with 3JS to make it pretty, right? But the gameplay and the core is there and it's solid. And I think part of the fun of developing the game is putting it up on something like AWS, right? Um, and in the middle of the stream, just stopping to be like, "Hey, is this any fun?" Right? Have people join the game and let's play a game. Is this any fun? And if not, how could we make it more fun? And just do some of those things that you do in game dev, but kind of do it on a larger scale, and see if we could come up with something fun. Um, right? I do want to base the demigod's powers and abilities around the various gods from all over, right? So have I think it would be interesting because if we do it in a plugin type manner, um, your plugins could be the various gods. So you could have a Greek gods plugin, or right, like a Vikings plugin, or an Aztecs plugin, or Hindu plugin, um, and really experiment with stuff like that. So that's something that I'm really excited about, and I have some fun ideas around it. X State is going to be featured heavily in it, because changing the rules is going to require a very robust state engine. And I think getting that right is going to take some time. But I'm looking forward to that. But thank you everybody for being here. I do need to end. I've got to I've got to go be a dad for a bit. But thank you for your feedback. Thank you for coming and hanging out. It's always a good time. You guys have a great rest of your night. If you can make it to the workshop tomorrow, I love it. What emojis should we do tomorrow? Do a flashlight emoji. That's the emoji. Break a leg. Awesome. Do a flashlight emoji. If you're here on the stream tonight, when you show up tomorrow, do a flashlight emoji, and we'll know who you are. But thank you everybody for being here. On Sunday, we're gonna do the NX21 upgrade. I really want to take a look at some of the stuff in NX21, and then I think I might put the Sudoku stuff aside. It's been so long since I've worked on it, and it's pretty broken. Really, I think we need to revert like the last 5 to 10 streams of work that we've done on the resource, and use a resource for X state. But I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. So you guys have a good night. We'll see you either tomorrow or Sunday, hopefully. And thank you.